The mountain radio crackled with static as Raina Holt climbed out of her truck at the base of Cutter Ridge. Snow fell in slow, heavy waves. Somewhere above the tree line, a family of 3 was lost, and the temperature was dropping fast. Chief Marcus Doyle barely looked at her. He had run this rescue station for 6 years, and he did not know the quiet woman standing at the edge of his team. All he saw was another volunteer in a borrowed jacket, holding a compass like she was afraid of it. "Stay behind the line," he told her. "Follow instructions, do not improvise." Raina nodded and said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence was safer than explanation. The team pushed up the ridge as the wind screamed through the pines. Doyle barked coordinates from an old paper map, sending 2 searchers toward a ravine that had already been cleared twice that morning. Raina watched the terrain, watched the drifting snow patterns, and felt something tighten in her chest. She knew this mountain. She knew it the way a person knows the sound of their own heartbeat. "They are not in the ravine," she said quietly. "The wind pattern is pushing them toward the eastern shelf." Doyle turned, annoyed. "I did not ask for a theory, I asked for compliance. Sir, if you send your team into that ravine, you are wasting the only hour of daylight we have left." His jaw tightened. "Stop giving orders. This is my team, my mountain, my call." Raina stepped back and let him make it. She had spent years learning when to fight and when to let a man discover the truth on his own terms. But as the searchers trudged toward the ravine, she felt the old instinct rise in her like a tide she could not hold back. 20 minutes later, Doyle's radio hissed with bad news. The ravine was empty. Worse, the storm was thickening, and one of his own searchers had slipped on ice and twisted an ankle. Panic edged into his voice as he called for a medevac that could not fly in these winds. Raina moved before she could stop herself. She grabbed a rope, a headlamp, and a thermal blanket and started climbing toward the eastern shelf without asking permission. "Where do you think you are going?" Doyle shouted after her. "To do what I was trained for," she called back. He followed furious, ready to pull her off the mountain by force. But when he reached the shelf, he found her kneeling beside the missing family, wrapping the youngest child in the blanket, checking pulses with hands that moved like they had done this 1,000 times before. The father was sobbing with relief. The mother kept whispering "thank you" over and over, like a prayer. Doyle stood frozen, staring at the woman he had dismissed hours earlier. Something about her calm, about the precision in her movements, sparked a memory he could not place. Back at the station, as the family was wrapped in blankets and loaded into a rescue vehicle, one of the younger searchers pulled up an old case file on his tablet. His hands were shaking when he showed it to Doyle. The photograph on the screen was younger, harder, dressed in a flight suit instead of a borrowed jacket, but the eyes were the same. Commander Raina Holt, missing for 3 years after a helicopter rescue gone wrong in a storm eerily similar to this one, presumed dead. The commander whose search protocols were still taught in every training manual Doyle's team used, the same protocols he had ignored on the ridge that afternoon. Doyle's throat went dry. He walked outside and found her sitting alone on the tailgate of a truck, watching the snow fall. "You wrote the manual," he said. "The one we train on every season. You are her." Raina finally looked up, and for the first time that day, her voice trembled. "I was her. After the crash, I could not save my own crew. I told myself I did not deserve to lead again." "You just saved a family that would have died in that ravine." "I did not do it for credit." "No," Doyle said quietly. "You did it because it is who you are, whether you hide it or not." He extended a hand to help her down from the tailgate. It was not a rescue chief helping a volunteer. It was a leader recognizing another leader who had been standing beside him the entire time. Weeks later, Raina returned to Cutter Ridge, not as a hidden name in a case file, but as a training officer standing beside Doyle, teaching a new generation of searchers the instincts that once saved a family in a snowstorm. She had spent 3 years running from her own competence. It took one mountain, one storm, and one honest chief to remind her that quiet strength is still strength, even when no one is watching. Sometimes the people who seem the least certain in the room are the ones who have already survived the storm everyone else is still learning to face. If this story moved you, like this video, drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Raina's place, and subscribe for more soul relief stories every day.